In a world where success is often measured by how many things you can do at once, the quiet truth remains. The ones who truly thrive are the ones who know how to focus. Concentration isn't just a skill, it's the art of staying with the moment, to live fully inside one thing without letting distractions pull you apart. In a time of notifications, noise, and instant cravings, choosing to focus has become an act of rebellion. But true concentration doesn't mean tension. It means presence. It's about guiding your attention the way a sculptor guides his chisel, with steadiness, with intention, with the belief that something beautiful will emerge if the hand remains still. In this series, we're not just going to talk about focus, we're going to live inside it. We'll explore how concentration becomes a source of clarity, power, and peace. We'll learn how to practice it, but more importantly, how to make it a way of life. Because every real change begins on the inside. At the moment you decide to stop scattering your energy and instead choose to direct it toward what matters, toward what's real, and that's where this journey begins. Fundamentals of concentration. Learn to command your attention from within. We often think of concentration as something mechanical, like narrowing your gaze, silencing your phone, sitting upright, and just grinding through the task in front of you. But true concentration is far more than that. It's not just about willpower or discipline, it's about alignment. It's the art of uniting your mind, your emotions, and your intention behind one clear aim, so that nothing feels divided inside you. Concentration begins with awareness, and this is something most people miss. You can't focus on something deeply if you're not even aware of where your attention is going. We live in a world of subtle drift. You open your phone to check the time, and 15 minutes later, you're scrolling through headlines you didn't even want to read. You sit down to work, and somehow you end up reorganizing your desktop, checking your emails, or daydreaming about a conversation from last week. Your attention slips, not because you're weak, but because you haven't trained your mind to return to the present moment. It's not a flaw, it's a habit, and like all habits, it can be retrained. Think of your attention like a flashlight. Most people wave it around in the dark, hoping it lands on something important. But if you hold it steady, if you shine it with intention, you begin to see clearly. The distractions don't disappear, but they no longer dominate. Concentration gives you that control. It lets you decide what deserves your light and what doesn't. But that control doesn't come instantly. It's a skill you build over time, with small acts of conscious choice. When you're reading and your mind wanders, you gently bring it back. When you're in conversation and you feel the urge to check your phone, you resist and lean in. These are the quiet micro-movements that retrain the mind. They seem insignificant in the moment, but over time they transform how you live, how you work, how you think. Many people think they need motivation to concentrate, but that's a trap. You don't wait to feel focused. You train yourself to return to focus, again and again. That's the difference between someone who drifts through the day, pulled by moods and impulses, and someone who leads their own mind. The first reacts, the second directs. This is why ancient philosophers, from the Stoics to the Buddhists, placed such deep emphasis on attention. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Nowhere you can go is more peaceful, more free than your own soul, especially when it has become inwardly focused." That's not just poetic, it's practical, because when you train your concentration, you're not just improving your productivity, you're reclaiming your inner life. And the results aren't just mental, they're emotional. When your mind is scattered, so is your sense of peace. But when your attention is stable, your emotions follow. You become calmer, more grounded, less reactive, more intentional. And in today's world, that is a superpower. So how do you begin? Not with force, but with presence. Choose one small thing to focus on, one page, one breath, one conversation. And when your mind wanders, and it will, just notice and return. No judgment, no frustration, just return. Again and again, like drawing a bow and releasing the arrow over and over until your aim begins to hold. Because concentration is not about tensing the mind, it's about learning how to hold it steady, like a calm lake that reflects clearly, rather than a stormy sea that distorts everything it touches. And the beautiful part, the more you practice, the more natural it becomes, not just during work, but in life. You'll begin to notice when your attention drifts in conversation, when your thoughts run wild before bed, when you react instead of respond. And in those moments, you'll have a choice, a space, a pause. That pause is where power lives. You don't need to master everything at once. Just begin with awareness. Just begin with one moment. Because once you learn how to guide your attention from within, you stop being controlled by the outside. And that's when focus stops being a task and becomes a way of being. Concentration in action, how to stay present and get real work done. There's a difference between knowing the value of concentration and actually using it when it matters. Many people read about focus, talk about it, admire it in others, but still live each day scattered, overwhelmed, distracted. Why? Because understanding a concept isn't the same as embodying it. The real shift happens when concentration becomes not just something you know, but something you do, something you live, moment by moment. True concentration is measured not by how long you sit in silence, but by how present you are with what you're doing. That presence has weight. It grounds you. It gives your thoughts shape and direction. When you're focused, your mind isn't racing between tabs or wandering into hypotheticals. You're here, fully, with the task at hand, no longer divided between what you're doing and what you wish you were doing. Let's talk about this in action. Imagine sitting down to write, study, or build something meaningful. You start off clear and energized. Then a small thought creeps in. Let me check that message. You follow it, thinking it'll just be a second. But you don't come back the same. The thread is broken. The mental energy you had is now scattered. Your mind has to reload context. Momentum fades. Now imagine the opposite. You feel the urge to switch, but you don't. You breathe, you stay, and something amazing happens. That wave of distraction passes. You didn't chase it. You simply observed it and let it go. You return to your work, not weaker, but stronger. Why? Because you made a conscious choice. You protected your presence, and with each choice like that, your mind learns. This is what we do now. We stay. That's what builds deep work. Not inspiration, not intensity, but presence repeated again and again. The most successful thinkers, creators, and leaders all share this ability, the capacity to hold their mind on a single thread of thought, to follow it without drifting until it becomes something real. They don't chase stimulation. They create it by going deeper than others are willing to go. You don't need to be extraordinary to do this. You just need to interrupt the pattern. When you feel yourself drifting, don't judge, don't panic, just notice, pause, return. If it happens 20 times in an hour, so be it. Every return is a rep. Every return strengthens your focus muscle, and over time you'll need fewer returns. You'll stay longer, you'll think clearer. And the beauty is, this applies to everything, not just creative work or study, even something as simple as a conversation. How often are we really listening, not just waiting for our turn to speak? Concentration in action means being there, fully, with your thoughts, your words, your body. The same goes for walking, eating, exercising, even resting. If you're always halfway somewhere else, mentally skipping ahead, checking out or planning what's next, you're never really alive in the moment you're living. Concentration is how we experience depth, and depth is what gives life meaning. There's a quiet kind of confidence that comes from this. When you know you can stay with something, despite urges to run, distract, or jump to something easier, you begin to trust yourself. Your mind becomes your ally, not your enemy. It stops pulling you away and starts helping you build. That's how real work gets done, not in frantic multitasking, not in bursts of half-finished effort, but in steady, directed presence. So ask yourself, what would your day look like if you truly stayed with what matters? If every hour had intention behind it, instead of impulse? If you focused not just when it was easy, but especially when it was hard? That's where the shift begins. When you stop letting attention be stolen and start offering it, deliberately. Because the way you do anything is the way you do everything. Concentration for self-mastery, discipline, willpower, and the battle within. Most people want control over their lives, but ignore the one battle that matters most, the one happening inside their own mind. They want success, but let their impulses lead them. They want peace, but let every emotion dictate how they respond. They want clarity, but allow constant distraction. The truth is, self-mastery begins where concentration begins, at the edge of that internal conflict between what you want now and what you want most. Let's be honest, concentration isn't always exciting. It's not glamorous. It often feels boring, slow, repetitive. But that's exactly why it's powerful. It trains you to stay steady when your emotions pull in every direction. It teaches you to resist the urge to quit when discomfort shows up. That's the hidden power most people never develop. The ability to say, "No, I'm not following that thought. I'm staying here." Discipline is not about punishment. It's about alignment. Choosing actions that serve your long-term values, not your short-term mood. And focus is the vehicle that carries you through that decision. Every time you bring your attention back from temptation, whether it's procrastination, fear, craving, or laziness, you're building a kind of mental armor. Not the hard, rigid kind, but a quiet, durable strength. One that holds even when life doesn't cooperate. Willpower, too, is misunderstood. It's not a heroic moment of resistance. It's dozens of small, invisible acts. Waking up when you said you would. Finishing the last 5 minutes of work you wanted to avoid. Saying no when your body says yes, but your values say wait. All of these moments are rooted in concentration, the ability to keep your attention on your goal, even when your feelings pull away from it. It's easy to say, "I can focus when I want to," but the real question is, will you? That's where the real growth happens. When you begin to notice how often your mind tries to escape, how often it wants to jump, click, switch, pause, avoid, and instead of giving in, you simply stay. You choose presence. That's not just mental training, that's character, because the ability to direct your attention is the foundation of every meaningful act in your life. Learning, listening, committing, loving, creating, healing, leading. Without focus, all of it becomes fragmented. With it, all of it becomes powerful. Think about the habits you want to change, whether it's smoking, overthinking, negative self-talk, impulsive decisions, or wasting time. These are not just behavior problems, they're concentration problems. Your attention is locked into an old loop. The habit exists because your focus keeps returning to it, feeding it, rehearsing it, believing in it. But when you take that attention away, when you bring it back to the present, to your values, to your actions, you start starving the habit. That's how real change begins. Not with guilt, not with willpower alone, but with the direction of attention. And that direction can only be trained, not forced. Start small. When you brush your teeth, just brush your teeth. When you eat, just eat. When you feel restless, stay with it for 60 seconds instead of escaping. You'll notice the mind resists. It wants to move. But the more you return, the more you reclaim. Over time, you build something stronger than discipline. You build trust in yourself. You begin to see that you don't have to act on every impulse. You don't have to obey every thought. You can hold the line. You can lead yourself. And that feeling, the quiet knowing that you are in charge of your mind, is one of the most powerful, liberating truths you can experience. So if you want to master your life, don't start with external goals. Start with attention. Start with one act of staying when you want to flee, one moment of silence when you want to speak, one breath of focus when you want to distract. Because mastery doesn't begin in what you do. It begins in what you choose not to abandon. Concentration and success. Why depth wins over hustle. We live in a world that worships hustle. The more hours you work, the more emails you answer, the more noise you create, the more it looks like you're succeeding. But let's pause for a moment and ask a harder question. Is that really success or just movement? Because the people who rise above the noise, the ones who create meaningful impact, build lasting legacies and live with purpose, aren't the busiest. They're the most focused. Concentration is the silent multiplier of every effort you make. You can spend 10 hours working distracted, jumping between tasks, chasing notifications, and achieve almost nothing. Or you can spend 2 focused hours in deep work and move your entire life forward. It's not about doing more, it's about going deeper. Success doesn't come from speed. It comes from direction, and direction requires clarity. You can't move with clarity if your mind is fractured. That's why so many people stay stuck, despite their ambition. They're not lazy, they're just divided. Their thoughts are scattered across open tabs, endless to-do lists, mental comparisons, and emotional noise. Concentration isn't just useful here, it's essential. It's the filter that separates the meaningful from the meaningless. Business leaders who consistently deliver results understand this. Artists who create timeless work understand this. Athletes who outperform the competition understand this. It's not just talent, it's focus, applied deliberately, consistently, with intensity. Take any successful project, startup, or breakthrough idea and trace it back. You'll find long stretches of concentrated effort, moments where someone said no to distraction, where they didn't chase the next shiny thing, where they stayed with one problem until it cracked open. That's where success is born, not in multitasking, not in chaos, but in mental stillness with direction. This doesn't mean doing less in life, it means doing fewer things better. And that shift from quantity to quality is where concentration becomes your greatest asset. Now let's look at money. Most people want to make more, but they never slow down enough to ask, make more doing what and why? Concentration forces you to think clearly, to define your value, to align your time with your strengths. Wealth is not just created by effort, it's created by smart attention, by spending more time on what produces long-term growth and less time on what just feels urgent. So if you're building a business, developing a skill, or simply trying to create a better life, ask yourself, where is your attention really going? Because whatever you give your attention to, you give your energy to. Whatever you concentrate on, you feed. And what you feed grows. That includes your fears, your doubts, your distractions, but also your goals, your skills, your confidence. It's all a matter of deliberate focus. This is why some people seem to make massive progress in short periods of time. They don't have more talent, they just remove the noise. They know how to sit with one task until it's done. They don't need 5 projects, they master one. They don't seek 100 connections, they go deep with a few. That depth pays off in the long run. It creates trust, quality, and momentum. Even in your personal life, focus matters. In conversations, in relationships, in decisions. Being fully present is a rare and powerful trait. It makes people feel heard. It builds bonds that surface-level attention can't create. So when you concentrate, you're not just improving output. You're improving connection. You're living with integrity because your mind and your body are in the same place, doing the same thing, with the same purpose. And here's the paradox. When you stop chasing everything, you start achieving the right things. You stop trying to do it all, and finally start doing what matters most. So if you want real success, stop asking, how can I do more? And start asking, what deserves my full attention? Because in a world that rewards speed, it's depth that creates legacy. Mental imagery and creative focus, how the mind builds what it sees. Every great achievement begins in the mind. Before the first step is taken, before the first line is drawn, before a single word is spoken, there is a picture, a mental image, a focused vision of what could be. And that image, held with clarity and belief, is what pulls us forward. This is the quiet power of concentrated imagination. And yet, very few people use it intentionally. We're taught to think, to analyze, to plan, but we're rarely taught to visualize, to deliberately hold an image in our minds, not as a fantasy, but as a blueprint, a target, a magnet, something to build toward. That's where concentration takes on a new dimension, not just as a tool for doing, but for becoming. What you consistently imagine, you begin to move toward, whether you realize it or not. Your subconscious mind doesn't argue. It receives. It accepts repeated thoughts as commands. That's why vague goals produce vague results, and why scattered minds produce scattered lives. The mind needs direction, and that direction is set by the pictures you hold in front of you again and again. This is not about blind optimism or positive thinking. It's about mental clarity with emotional intensity. When you combine a focused image with steady attention and action, you begin to shape your internal world, and eventually, the outer world follows. Think of a sculptor. They don't just start hammering stone. They begin with a vision, a clear sense of what they want to create. Every strike of the chisel serves that vision. The same is true with your life. Without a clear mental image, you're just reacting. But with one, you begin creating. So how does this work in practice? Start by asking, what do I truly want to create in my life? not just in vague terms like success or freedom, but with detail. What does your ideal work feel like? What kind of relationships energize you? What does your day look like when it's aligned with your purpose? Then close your eyes. See it. Really see it. Don't just say it. Visualize it with color, emotion, movement. Place yourself inside it. This isn't daydreaming. It's focused rehearsal. You're building neural pathways that prepare your mind for action. The more vivid the image, the stronger its pull. Over time, that vision becomes more than just a thought. It becomes a guiding presence, a filter. You start saying no to things that don't fit the picture. You begin aligning your actions, habits, and environment with what you've imagined. And that's when change gets real. Not because you're forcing it, but because you're becoming it. Now here's something crucial. Imagery alone isn't enough. You need sustained focus. That means revisiting your vision daily, not just when you feel inspired, not just when things are going well, but especially when doubt creeps in, when you feel stuck, when your external reality doesn't yet match the internal one. That's when you double down. You see it again. You remind yourself. You hold the image, not because it's real yet, but because it can be. This is what artists, athletes, and visionaries do. They rehearse success mentally before it ever shows up physically. They see the shot before they take it. They feel the applause before the curtain rises. They write the words before the page is filled, not because they're lucky, but because they've trained their focus. And that training gives them momentum. Even in the smallest moments, this works. Before a meeting, imagine calm and clarity. Before a workout, visualize strength. Before a conversation, picture connection. Each time you do this, you're not just hoping, you're preparing. And that preparation changes everything. So ask yourself now, what image is shaping your life? Is it one you've chosen, or one that's been given to you? Is it empowering or limiting? Because your mind is always building something. The question is, are you guiding it or letting it run on autopilot? The power is in your hands and your mind. Concentrate on the image you want to bring to life. See it, return to it, work toward it. Because before anything becomes real, it becomes clear. The subconscious mind and concentration. Reprogram your inner operating system. Most of what we do, think, and feel each day doesn't come from conscious decision. It comes from patterns, from deeply embedded programs running quietly beneath the surface. This is the domain of the subconscious mind, a vast inner landscape that determines how we respond to life, how we see ourselves, and even what we believe is possible. And yet, we rarely pay attention to it. We try to change habits with logic. We try to stay focused with reminders. We try to force our way into new behavior. But unless we address the subconscious, the real engine behind our choices, we remain trapped in loops. That's where concentration becomes more than just mental effort. It becomes a tool for reprogramming the deepest parts of who we are. Think of your subconscious as an operating system. It doesn't argue. It doesn't judge. It simply runs what it's been taught to run. The language it speaks is repetition, emotion, image, focus, which means whatever you concentrate on with enough intensity and consistency becomes part of the code. If you constantly focus on fear, you train your subconscious to be hypervigilant. If you dwell on limitations, you reinforce the belief that change is impossible. But if you concentrate on clarity, possibility, and aligned action, your subconscious begins to rewire itself to support those outcomes. not overnight, but gradually through steady input. This is why auto-suggestion and mental rehearsal are so powerful, not because they magically manifest things, but because they speak directly to the subconscious in its native language. When you tell yourself, "I'm focused, calm, and capable," it may feel fake at first, but with repetition, and especially when paired with clear imagery and emotional charge, your subconscious starts to believe it. And once belief shifts, behavior follows. Now here's the secret most people miss. Your subconscious is always listening. It doesn't just absorb what you say to yourself intentionally, it also records what you dwell on when you're bored, what you replay in your thoughts before bed, what you tell others about your life. Your casual thoughts are not casual at all. They are data, and your concentration acts as the upload button. It decides which ideas get installed. So the question becomes, are you focusing consciously or unconsciously? Because either way, you're programming something. This is where training the subconscious becomes a conscious practice. You start by becoming aware of the internal scripts running on repeat. The doubts, the fears, the "I'm not ready yet." You don't fight them. You simply replace them, slowly, consistently, with a new focus, with better questions, with clearer self-talk. Let's say you want to overcome procrastination. Instead of fixating on how lazy or distracted you feel, begin to concentrate on the identity you want to embody. I'm someone who finishes what they start. Say it, visualize it, act on it, even in the smallest way. Over time, your subconscious adapts to that message. It begins to nudge you toward behavior that matches the image. Or maybe you want to feel more confident. Don't wait to feel ready. Concentrate instead on the way you want to show up. Speak to yourself the way you'd speak to a trusted friend. Use repetition. Use visualization. Use silence. Every time you hold that inner picture with focus, you're writing new code. And yes, this takes time, but it's the only kind of change that lasts. Because it's not just about changing what you do, it's about changing what feels normal. That's the goal. To make discipline feel natural, to make clarity feel automatic, to make emotional balance your default state. And that shift doesn't come from force. It comes from repetition plus focus plus belief. So use your concentration as a gateway, not just to work harder, but to work deeper, to speak to your subconscious with intention, to feed it thoughts worth believing, because whatever you feed your subconscious, it will find a way to express. You are always becoming. The only question is, are you guiding it or letting it guide you? The universal force of focus, how concentrated thought connects us all. There's a quiet truth we don't talk about enough. Your thoughts don't end with you. They ripple, they echo. Every focused idea, every deeply held belief, every act of presence. You might think it's personal, internal, invisible. But it's not. Concentrated thought carries energy. It shapes your behavior, yes, but it also shapes your environment. It influences others, often without a word. And in that way, concentration is not just a tool for personal growth. It's a force that connects us all. We live in a time of fragmentation. Everyone's attention is scattered, split between apps, headlines, tasks, conversations. And in that noise, something sacred is being lost. The experience of shared presence. The power of full attention, not just to a task, but to a person, a moment, an idea. In a world starving for meaning, concentration is one of the last sacred acts. When you focus, truly focus, you're not just building your own mind, You're creating space for something deeper to emerge. In conversation, this means truly listening, not thinking about what to say next, not judging, not waiting for a pause to speak, just being there. That kind of attention changes people. It heals. It makes others feel seen in a world where everyone's trying to be visible. When you apply concentrated thought to your work, whether you're writing, designing, coding, building, teaching, your output carries a different energy. There's clarity in it, intention, integrity, and that's something people feel even if they can't explain it. Focused work resonates. It cuts through the noise. It lingers. Even beyond work, focused thought influences your family, your community, your culture. Your children absorb your presence more than your words. Your team mirrors your clarity or your confusion. Your energy either stabilizes or agitates the people around you. All of that stems from the way you manage your attention. But there's something even deeper. Philosophers and mystics across cultures have long believed in the invisible threads that connect us. Some call it collective consciousness. Others speak of energy fields, morphic resonance, or shared intention. The language differs, but the insight is the same. Our inner world doesn't stay inside. Focused thought, held with clarity, emotion, and integrity, has power beyond the individual. Think about moments in history where a single concentrated vision changed everything. A leader refusing to back down. A scientist locked into a problem until the breakthrough came. A movement that began with an idea and spread through minds like wildfire. None of that happens by chance. It happens when thought becomes focused, and focus becomes contagious. When you direct your attention with purpose, you become part of something larger than yourself. You become a signal in a world of static, and others, whether consciously or not, begin to align with that frequency. Your discipline becomes their permission. Your clarity becomes their mirror. Your presence becomes their anchor. This isn't about control, it's about contribution. We are always influencing each other with every thought, every action, every moment of silence or presence. Concentration is how we choose to influence consciously. So how do we tap into this universal force? We begin by slowing down, by choosing one thing at a time, by practicing the art of full attention, not because it's trendy, but because it's sacred. We begin by focusing not just on what we want to achieve, but on how we want to show up, what energy we want to carry, what impact we want to leave behind. The world doesn't need more noise. It needs more people who are deeply rooted in themselves, people who can sit with an idea long enough to understand it, people who can listen long enough to hear what's really being said, people who can work long enough to make something that matters. You can be one of those people, but only if you choose to direct your mind, not once, not sometimes, but as a way of life. Because in the end, focus is not just how you think, it's how you connect. And that connection, mind to mind, heart to heart, thought to thought, is the thread that holds this world together. You've just taken a journey, not through theory, but through the inner terrain of your own mind, through attention, discipline, imagination, action. You've seen what concentration really is, not just silence or stillness, but presence, intention, power. And now, the question is no longer, can I focus? The question is, what will I choose to focus on, day after day, moment after moment, when it really counts? Because every day you're shaping your mind, you're feeding your subconscious, you're building habits, stories, beliefs, whether by default or by design. And concentration is your way back to the driver's seat. Not because it's easy, but because it's worth it. Your mind is your greatest tool, not because of how much it can do, but because of what it becomes when you learn to direct it, to guide it with clarity instead of chaos, with depth instead of noise, with purpose instead of impulse. And maybe, just maybe, that's all you ever needed. You don't need more motivation. You don't need more time. You don't need to wait for everything to feel perfect. You just need to return to this moment, to your breath, to your work, to your path, and stay with it. Again and again. Because the ability to focus is the ability to live fully, and your life is too important to live distracted. So breathe, slow down, and start now. You already have everything you need.